on your mobile.
All right, I can see me, and
Oh wait. No, no. That's good. That's good. Sorry, that's me. I need to give you my virtual camera. All right. So we are in the green room. We're about to get the go live from the producer,
the producer, the director, and most of the stage crew.
the most of the stage crew. In fact, we can probably turn them on, but I won't because I don't want to tempt fate. Can you see me now?
No, I cannot. Is there anything that I should
No. It's me. It's
I
me.
can see?
OBS virtual camera. Nope. OBS camera. All right, that's fine. Well, we'll do it voice only. Like they can see me, and it doesn't matter. Just like you know what I look like.
Well, yeah, that's part of my enjoyment anyway.
Oh, okay, all
Uh,
right. Well, that's nice to hear. All right. Well, if you want to have a look at me, then let's
well,
see what we can
that's
do.
true.
Um,
Or we can wind back, and I can try and run it through the computer again if you want to spend that time.
yeah, it's fine.
That can be live from your end about what
How to get a
happens.
dad on the
Yeah,
laptop.
34-year Sam and Dad show how to get a dad on a laptop with the tethering out in the bush.
There we go. That is live, but I would like to get it on the computer. I think it's better. And no one. There's like four people that watch. Like we're technically 10 minutes ahead when we usually start. To our audience, we're 10 minutes early.
There is that. Well, I'll need to get out of Zoom and all this and that off of the
Well, you can
phone.
leave this running. You can leave the phone running with Zoom, and you should be able to tether and blah 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 while
Okay, but
running
I need
stuff.
to kind of move around because I've
That's all right. I'll turn your camera off. You can just be a disembodied voice.
talking. All
I
right.
can see you. You're a voice. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. We thought we'd give you a little behind the scenes taste of what goes into making the Sam and Dad show. Essentially, it's. I think everyone would this would be a pretty relatable thing. Is integrating your parents into your now probably pretty robust digital. Hey Dad, actually, is this distracting you? Me doing like
No,
patter?
no, I'm listening. I'm good. I've now turned the other device on.
Uh huh.
Messenger that's still searching for anything and it's no good. So
Yeah. Where
do I
can
need
you?
to go in through Messenger? I have to go in through Messenger, don't I?
Well, let me. I'm pretty good at debugging this stuff. Firstly, can you go to a different browser, and or like a different tab or whatever, and just test, like just go to a different website and just make sure that
To make sure that I'm hooked up.
yeah.
Who's using Chrome person one? Douglas Gowdy, Google. I'll have a look. A to Z lyrics. Welcome to A to Z lyrics.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's good. Now go to just Facebook. Like just go to
Well, I've got the
whoa.
messenger symbol here. I'm not on Facebook, so I'll start at the beginning of the page.
Hang on. What have I done? Oh, here we go. I've accidentally started an old episode. Actually, this is a good chance for me to test to see if we actually are live because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing it differently. We are live. Excellent. But it's okay. Like
So I've got
it's
the Facebook news tab. Now we are out in the bush and it has been raining, so it's looking for Facebook, but yeah,
it's
maybe
just
I haven't.
just like type Facebook in the URL and hit enter.
That's what I've done, and it took about 3 minutes to process that. Now it's found me. Now, so within Facebook, so it is working, but it's slow. I go to the messenger symbol,
Yeah.
new message request, Samuel H. Rowdy, that should be good. Well, we might be getting there. The power of two. Launch meeting, no.
Yeah. The whatever the bottom lick it.
Launch meeting, that's
What?
join meeting.
Yeah. Wait. So what are you seeing? Because it shouldn't be a request.
Meeting ID, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Um,
Hang on. Tell me if you see this. Can you see this?
I can't see anything.
I just sent a message in that chat.
Wait on, I'll get that one. Launch meeting decline. Set cookies. I've got to set cookies. Not launch meeting so much as do you have Zoom phone installed or is it? I'm going to go back one.
Yeah. I think. Are we? Tell me when you're confident you're in the chat window. You should see the words. So click that.
It says Zoom. Click open Zoom meetings on the dialog shown.
Go back a bit more into like the chat room, basically.
No, yeah, no. Samuel
Yep.
pressing top ones today.
Yep.
Might be doing it this time.
There should be so click that with little arrows pointing at it.
In the green screen, so can you click on, I can see me in it now, join this video.
Yep.
We're getting into it.
He's in. All right. Now you have to get out on the mobile, or you're gonna trip yourself out, basically.
Oh, you mean turn your phone off.
Yep.
Join the computer audio.
There we go. I'll kick the other one. Don't report. All right.
The background, oh, that was before.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is good. I turned you off temporarily. Hey. All right. I've exited it from the meeting. There we go. That's good. There is you. So you can sit like. Yes, something. There'll be some sort of like accept audio. Oh, headphones.
I know why. I set all this one.
Yes, there we go.
Well, I had it all set up. Make it about your size when I'm all chilled back like this.
There we go.
This is what I look like when I'm coming from digging some more stuff. It's been raining so much, perfect rain in the bush. We've had about 25 mil. So Saturday morning,
No, hang on.
all dug.
Alright, you go.
So this morning, and I talked about the landform and the surface and tree spots, and so I've developed another one of those with the structural form that I never thought I'd live long enough to do. And I did shoot some footage to show Mum of this when it was running yesterday morning, and I thought, oh, I'll be all set up nice and cool, and I've just hooked it up through my iPad, but now I don't feel brave enough to try and go through all of the techno crap to drag a bit out of the iPad to share with you. Maybe next week when we know how to actually just get hooked up a bit better. So moving right along.
Oh wait, we need to do the intro. We need to do the intro. Alright, we're ready for the intro? Alright, alright, we are live. Welcome to the Sam and Dad. Welcome to the Sam and Dad show.
It's the Sam and Dad show.
Alright. Okay, Dad, what's on the menu today?
I've got the normal highlight points that we'll pass through over the next 40 minutes or whatever, and
Normal highlight points.
the wonders of the human body and the miracles of being human.
Wait, we just want the top level, not the Oh, you're frozen. That's not very promising. I'm committed to streaming being a good idea. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I also just like stream for like 3 hours on Twitch to basically no one as well. It's pretty funny. I just like streaming, even though no one watches. What does that mean? So this is live. I've lost Dad. Hey, he's back. What happened then? Hey, so you just figured it out then? Oh, what happened then?
I know, I touched the chunky joint between my phone and the laptop.
Okay.
Moving the cursor from the middle of my face on my screen and brushed ever so slightly. Can you notice any difference in the sound with my new microphone?
I say something. I like talk a bit more.
Well, so I did have footage of this drainage system working that runs water down off of the upslope track down into my tree spots and all the rest of it, but not brave enough to now get it off of the iPad out into the view. We'll go for next week on that one.
All right. So top level. So if we're doing the top level, we just give
Top
the
level,
headline.
the dot points
we
are the
don't
main
explain
topics.
them. Main topics
And
are the wonders of humanity.
the wonders of being human, and the focus today will be of the eye, wonders of the human body, uh, and we're going to the topics are going to include moral teachings in old stories about some of the old Aboriginal stories about how the land was formed,
Wait, we're
and
just doing
they
top level.
huh?
We're just doing top level, just
Top
headlines.
level. Oh yeah, and the idea on thinking. I'm still thinking a lot about the idea of compulsion versus live the best life that you can.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to MC you to MC me. Is let's start with what's in the news. Let's. I think
What's
people like
in the
current
news?
events.
What's in the news? And the what's in the news, I don't know whether you call it a current event or not, but it's from last weekend's Australian Weekend magazine. And it's one of the little touchstones down the bottom on page 29. And it goes, breaking the chains of addiction. And this idea of addiction, compulsion, free will, how much we can live and be the person we'd like to be realistically. So it goes, adherents of the Jain religion, Jain religion in India, have a reputation for their dedication to fasting at festivals and on holy days. Now the community is promoting a new type of deprivation, and it's called digital digital fasting. And it's a competition designed to wean youths off their devices. The mobile is a good servant but a dangerous master. Wisdom, Jain religion, uh, is the tagline on the contest in which 2,000 young Jains, Jains, have agreed to shun mobiles, laptops, and tablets for 12 hours every day for 50 days.
So I have a thought on that. It's funny. It's like we have this powerful thing called dopamine that gives us the motivation to like is the thing that tells us whether we're surviving or not, essentially, or doing those things. But then it can become like it can become maladaptive because that dopamine drives you to do things like that. We can accidentally hardwire dopamine to do stuff that isn't good for us, like do drugs, blah 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 blah. But and so many religions, what I think a lot of like things like escaping desire and all these valid things that you could also put on a spiritual spectrum are also like cultural adaptations to dopamine being able to be so easily rewired. And so now, like, we've got this totally new dopamine. Previously it was like beer or stabbing or whatever. We now have digital stuff. It's so high octane dopamine, and that we have to like build really quickly these cultural structures around mitigating the addiction to the digital dopamine. I call it flicking the dopamine bean because flicking the bean is like slang for female masturbation. Basically, that's the joke. It's very funny. So like, yeah, it's I think that's really interesting. But on the flip side is that there's all these like cultural things around that I've seen emerging around like digital detox and yada 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 that sort of kind of remind me of the cultural things of like fasting yourself, not eating carbs. Atkins is it's really like if you can't just regulate yourself, you have to do like these abstinence or really dramatic things to rewire it, which is I have to do. I actually have to. I have an app on my phone that kills my internet connection essentially at 8 o'clock and doesn't kick in until 12 o'clock. Because otherwise, I just spend the past. My life's completely changed since I started using it because I would spend hours on my phone basically because it was a fast paced information teat, and so it's like
Oh,
fascinating
it's an
seeing
addiction.
religions. But I get addicted to anything. Like fuck, like literally anything that will give me stimulus, I'll overdo until like I damage myself. So I have to like, and because I don't have a religion basically, apart from making stuff. Anyway, it's kind of interesting.
Well, we're on to this theme, which is the compulsion versus the live the best life you can. And all philosophers and probably all behavioral psychologists would agree that trying to run the balance line between doing too much and doing too little, the Buddhist idea of the middle way, of just trying to live a life of variety but moderation. And it's easy to say, but if you're highly compulsive, and for instance, just using an example, if you happen to have a predilection to do a lot of braking, if you happen to be some sort of a gravel obsessive, then if you're in a landscape that really cries out to be raked and have its gravel moved around, then it's hard to restrain. Uh, and the law always, unless someone's clinically insane, the law will always go, you've got a choice. You've got to restrain. And if you breach the social boundaries, and we'll get onto the moral stories of the old, all the old cultures have moral stories bringing kids up. And I've got an example out of a local publication that we'll get onto. But the idea that humans should always contain and restrain their passions, their predilections, their obsessions, their compulsions. It's a great thing, but ask any uh, alcoholic, ask anybody who just can't get off the internet no matter what. And the idea that you've got free will is a fairly blurry one.
Yeah, and like you could ask me, like I was, and like I didn't realize it until years later that I was an alcoholic, because uh, I didn't even see it, if you know what I mean, because it was the one backfill that was always there to fill my compulsions when the other stuff wasn't working or wasn't there. So I thought drugs was a problem, like marijuana and stuff like that. You know, I smoked a bit of pot, but like there was alcohol was always that thing that I think because it's got sugar in it, to be honest, more than anything. Apart from the like having like trauma to deal with that meant that it felt better to be like woozy than present or whatever. But then you take away the alcohol, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm so functional now. I'm like, and then I realized I was reading this thing, like, oh wait, I spend 60, 70 hours a week, like, working for the same reason. And then I'm often like scared to do things I enjoy because I know I'll overdo it, right? And it's only lately where I've been like trying to get myself to do things like make music or draw again, like for fun, you know what I mean? Because it's easier to overdo it for work because you're like, well, it's a job. It's like this moral, ethical, positive. You're working. So like the other day, I had this thing where I was like, so my thing is Sundays is the only rule is there's significantly less rules because I've had to like box in my little rat brain so hard to just be functional, and the on Sunday I just like I'm not allowed to decide what I'm gonna do until as I do it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll draw. And then I literally drew for like 8 hours until my eyes were like beet red. And I was like, oh, fuck. So now the second rule is I'm not allowed to do anything productive on Sunday for longer than an hour.
Yeah, that's good, but then you won't know whether to be able to define what's productive and what's just relaxing. So good way out, Sam.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Just play with the language and she'll be right.
Yeah, yeah, I
Business
just
as
put a little
usual, but
loophole in. But it's
we've
just
got a
funny
new.
because it's like you know what I mean? Like I don't like I'm compulsive even when I'm not destructively, like
Yes, no, I suspect most of us are, Sam.
oh
Honestly
yeah,
do.
100%.
I in this location that I've got now there was two lots of 50 mil of rain within the first few weeks of me getting back to my bush house where I've been landscaping, terraforming, bringing water into my developing tree spots on this bony old granite ridge for 50 years. And I'm up to the never thought I'd live to see the day. So I made a little pond by just nipping up a terrace I've been working on forever up in the garage. Um, on Friday, sorry, on Wednesday before this rain came, I did another 15 minutes worth of fiddling with light stuff. Made a little lip to this, redirected all this water down off of the road upstream from the garage, and then just with less than 15 millimeters of rain, this whole ephemeral pond formed up there for the first time ever.
That's cool.
And I was in awe, and I got some video of it that we'll try and pull that out for next week. But the idea now, all of that water that was captured there, maybe 50 litres, 100, 200 litres, shallow but big-ish. It will necessarily have to soak in to that high headland above all my trees and that. And so it will seep through and keep it moist and cool for that much longer. So this key principle to survival of local food production is water management, surface water management, getting water into the ground where you want to grow stuff near where people live, ideally, suburbia, on and on. It's starting to just very gently rain again here. I'm a rain obsessive, rainwater. But that's not the story. Let's get on to our next topic, which is the idea of the moral teachings through stories. So you may not be able to pull up the source of this because it's very local. Can we get this? No. It's called...
Hang on. You just have to put it in front of your face.
Right.
No, that blocks out your face, actually. This is... Yeah, we've been through this a few times. What is it? Yeah.
It's called South Coast History Society, Inc. South Coast History Society Recollections, REC, Recollections, issue 30, being this month, I think. And it's subtitled The Very Best of Our Fascinating Local History, South Coast, New South Wales. They have such a group of people, all volunteers, of course. And on page 12, I love our vehicle, as it were.
Hang on. Let's get up in the sky. All right.
Hey, that's even better. Oh, wait on, there's Elon there.
Oh, yeah, g'day, mate. Oh, g'day,
How
mate.
you going? You coming or going? X marks the spot.
All right, South Coast. What is it? History Market.
South Coast History Society. It must even have a website. Let me be even more careful here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, typically it's obscured by old school. Somewhere here they'll have contributors and editor and how to contact.
Well, let me search it. I'll bring up. Let's get back into the studio. And I'll.
Wait on here. Oh, here's an email address. That's not much good.
But if I type in what you said into the internet.
It should.
All right, let's go back to the studio. All right, we're back in the studio. We've landed.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it was good to have a trip, and it was great seeing Elon.
All right, what am I searching again? South Coast History Club.
South Coast History Society
Inc. All right.
And their publication is called
here we go.
Recollections.
Yeah, I love this shit.
Oikopnas fancy a cup of tea and some crumpets in it.
Okay, so we've just had a comment from someone saying, "Oi, governors, fancy a cup of tea and some crumpets in it." I wonder if that's our old mate. Very rich and wealthy. Hello, very rich and wealthy. Thank you. I would love a cup of tea. We're actually Australian.
I want one too. I've got an old one here, but it's a herbal one. So
that's so funny. This guy must be American because it's just like thinks we're English. Okay, so what are we looking for again? Help me out.
They may not even have a website.
No, they do. Can you see?
Oh, they do?
Yeah, look. Recollections, Journal of the South History Coast.
Hey, what's that?
Well, whatever nationality you are, I'm American, so I'm better than you.
Too true, mate. I'm not going to tell my dad you said that. He said it's why I just outed myself, didn't I? He said, whatever nationality you are, it doesn't matter because I'm American and I'm better than you. So, any response to the jingoistic American zeitgeist that we are now encountering?
Absolutely normal and to be expected.
Hey, compassion and love. How about put some of that on your crumpet? Very rich and wealthy.
And I'm very rich and wealthy.
And I'm gonna turn off the. I'll leave it going. You can say whatever you want. All right.
Go tend to your own bees. Here we go. You need honey for your crumpets. Here we go. We're sick of trying to do the internet. We got paper.
All right. No, we're on there. We're on there. But tell me, what's the story?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
All right.
We've got Montague Island, which is off near Bermagui Way for those who know Southeast Australia, but otherwise you'll just have to say that an island. that in white persons
PP
language is
Stinky.
called Montague Island, but it's also called Barangaba, Barangaba, and what's white people have called Mount Dromedary, which is a big mountain around here, is called Gallagher, Gallagher. That's right, Gallagher. Gallagher is the mother mountain. She has two sons, Dan Junker and Barangaba. Barangaba did not listen to his mother. This Barangaba did not listen to his mother when he should have, and forever has water blocking him from getting back to his mother. Nanjunka stayed close to his mother and now is represented by Little Dromedary Mountain, not far from Gallagher.
So you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you may recall, when I was doing stuff to do with weather warnings in remote Indigenous communities, and got to stay out in remote Indigenous communities in northwestern Australia in particular, to see if the weather warning issues, if we could resolve all of theirs, then we would probably drag all of the other more plugged in communities along as well. But because I am who I am, and because it was my research to define, I said we're going to get traditional weather information. We're going to get traditional ways of knowing what's coming up, particularly bad / destructive, dangerous, possibly killer weather, from the old stories. And I did some few of those, and they were, and now there's an Indigenous weather site on the Bureau of Meteorology tick. So that's all part of that.
Wait, Indigenous weather? That's cool. Let me check that out.
I thought you'd do that. In the Bureau of Meteorology, bomb. It's going to bomb and then...
It's so embarrassing how bad I am at spelling. Not even bad at spelling, just lazy, because I just know that if I just sort of like fuzzy logic around the key, the letters that are sort of there, that it'll kind of get me there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's been your aspiration since you were in NAP, Sam.
What specifically? Okay, Indigenous weather knowledge. This is cool.
That'll do it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So slowly, but then, you know, our destruction over this culture was anything but slow, but the tattered at times remnants live on in a lot of amazing ways. So the attunement of the calendar to the various weathers and the major weather events, as you saw on that dot map, particularly from the northwest, where the traditional knowledge wasn't as destroyed as the quickly more arable land to the east and to the southeast of Australia was taken over. And so a lot of the traditional knowledge detail is still fully intact in the west and particularly in the northwest. So that's a relief. So there's a lot of weather knowledge, but as well as gathering traditional stories, or ways, they weren't still stories, they were. And we had a lot of discussions with the Bureau and the traditional stuff about how we could get some algorithms to blend the two, and then have some little competitions as who got the over the horizon detection of a cyclone first. The Bureau met with all of their eyes in the sky, or the terns gathering into unusual groups and wheeling in circles up and along the beach a week or so before any hint of possible cyclones detected by bomb. But there are the stories for other times. The moral story here is simply that I was inadvertently privileged to hear from traditional storytellers out in their country of some of the other moral stories about children doing naughty things and basically being banished or missing out on food or having a really shit life unless they conformed and did as they were told and did as they were expected.
So I actually have, look, this might come as a huge surprise to you, but I actually have an anecdote around that. Not even an anecdote, a factual contribution to it. So there's two guys, Bruce Pascoe. I'm sure you are probably across him. He reminds me like he speaks in that sort of like academic bush poet kind of voice, and he's like an indigenous guy who wrote.
And he lives out in the bush.
And he lives out in the bush, and he's got a big beard, big bushy beard. And he wrote Dark Emu and yada yada yada. And then there's this other guy, Tyson Yonkapora, who wrote Sand Talk, who is like he's a bit older than me, but he's like sort of like millennial-ish or Gen X, like, he's kind of young and cool. Well, he's got long hair and, he's probably like 40 or 50 now or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, he's awesome academic, but indigenous academic, but also just like general philosopher and yada, yada, yada. So basically, I went and saw a talk that he did, and he was talking about how stories need places to exist. Stories need places. Like, stories need to be tied to place. Not always, but do you know what I mean? Like
I agree.
In modern culture, like we don't really have the story. Like what you were saying then is not just like the little boy stayed close to the mother. It's like that's the mother there, and that river is. Do you know what I mean? And so all these stories, they evolve to then be connected to different places, but they sort of come from these same things. We don't really have that in like modern Western, or our place-based stories are very much like top down from like, hey, we're in McDonald's, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And and so where he was kind of going was like, well, we need to make stories connected to place again, which I agree to a certain extent, but I wonder, well, it's not my place not to agree. Like that fabric of knowledge existed and does exist as part of the land, and my understanding is that land and that connection to story is something that it exists inherently, and that's the cultural understanding. But like also the other side of it, because he was very like, all the digital stuff will fritter away, which I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe. But is that like, do we need to make like new place in the digital landscape? Do you know what I mean? Like, do we need to rethink our idea of place as well, so that a place can not just be
fully,
a mountain, but like a place can be here right now, like not Twitch, but this moment of interaction, or like what does place mean in a digital landscape?
Fully. And just to round out the idea of stories and moral teachings for kids, the right and wrong of behaviour, acceptable behaviour, is the Australian Indigenous storytelling is always, how come this landscape looks like this? Why is this look like this? So all of the stories about how that land was formed, and pretty well all of the stories start with a significant human or number of humans, often one, sometimes a brother, up around Cairns. All of the landform around Cairns was formed by two giant brothers in that case. That one story I'm thinking of is from in the Kimberley, and there is a braided river, a long, broad, flat river from the ancient landscape of the oldest land surface, still facing its same face up to the heavens, the western shield of Australia. And they had a story of people working together and a giant flood, because a lot of the stories I heard were necessarily weather focused. And the good children, the children who stuck with their parents, avoided the worst of the flood, and the naughty children who were naughty and followed the dingo, they died, they were drowned. But the results were the river, which was where the peoples that told them this story, where they had ever lived. But it also explained how they got there, how the landscape got there, and if you like, the child version of a moral code. And of course, as you got older, you were initiated into lore, LORE, of the different cultural subgroups and language groups. And the way you've got a very profound, deep knowledge of landscape and that moral sense of place.
Yeah, it's super. I forget. So to give everyone some context, Dad did tons of work with Indigenous communities for disaster messaging or whatever. Like he did a ton of work generally, but also around like messaging around natural disasters in communities, and spend heaps of times with Indigenous communities. Because we do a bit of this stuff through work. Like nothing I'm really that close to, but where it's like a big, like for the Mount Resilience, for example, we had like an Indigenous writer, and so I'm exposed to this. I'm like, oh yeah, I know where I've heard this before. Dad's talked about it. Do you have someone you could bring on? Oh, let's talk about it later. It'd be cool to have bring on Patrick or something like that to, because I know some of these stories you actually have to have the right level of what's the word?
Initiation.
Yeah, or access level to talk about, right? And what I was just thinking about was how I know that I think we can talk about it, but it'd be great to have this conversation with an Indigenous storyteller as well. But we just had a speaker come on to our group lunch to talk about this stuff, and he was talking about how the stories have different levels of maturity essentially, but they're the same story, and they have these different levels, and there's some are more have more blood and guts, and other, do you know what I mean? And it's kind of it's just so rich, and the the thing that Tyson said that stuck with me is that the only way to the only things that'll ever be remembered are songs, basically, is what he said, and oral history, because it doesn't matter what you write down, it doesn't matter how many radioactive signs and yada yada yada, how many blogs you do, how many streams you do, the things that persist more than anything else are oral histories. And that actually a different thing, because it's every culture's got them, is that, I think I told you this last week, they found this nonsense song in Scotland that turned out to be a dead language from 1,000 years ago from Norway, basically. And so to them, they just thought it was this jibber jabber song, the Scottish people, but it actually meant stuff in this old Norse language, because it just, we just sing. And then this other line of this song that I really like, that's they'll only remember science when it's sung, is taking these, these the useful things and turning them into stories and songs, and that's how we can. And then it's well, what of now that we're learning do we need to put into song?
Well, interestingly, because I've been trying to write and encourage with others, and we have written so many songs like Them Dolphins, and songs like We All Come From Somewhere. From Africa we spread out to the north, east and south from somewhere. We all come from somewhere. And just that reflection of our origins, and the idea in my language of our cultural momentum. We moved in groups, took different routes across the seas, through desert sands, from near and far, through distant land. We all come from somewhere, and then on our way to somewhere.
I'm not gonna lie, when you were talking about the sustainable songs and blah blah blah, I think I was feeling very cynical about art and its ability to influence culture generally, but now I'm cynical about anything having an ability to influence culture. If anything, the boat's lowered, and I was what's sustainable songs, it's all that kind of trying to make something that's cool also good, you know what I mean? I was whatever, Dad's on his own thing. But from what this guy's saying, it's the only thing that you have any chance of writing to the human consciousness. And I was oh fuck.
Fully agree, and I've been trying to live that, as you know, for some decades. With John Richter, we come from the land of plenty, you come from the land of dust. We come from a land of plenty, you from blood, shed, slaughter, and dust.
Okay, so I got something for you. The songs that were propagated to the memory were catchy, so people with magical brains could break out of the paradigm and add new stuff to the conscious, the collective, right? But generally, stuff really only came from the top down, as in the superstructure that decided what expanded beyond. Do you know what I mean? So the organizing religion that said these are the songs, or the kind of the people that led the songs in different, where there's less, non-West, which I don't know a lot about. I'm just imagining that there's some sort of cultural signifier, but of saying this is what's acceptable, and those systems worked. But now our cultural signifier that says, yes, these are the songs that distribute generally, is capitalism, and the structures that support it. So a lot of the songs that get written to the global consciousness are the ones that serve the needs of capital.
Mm, fully. And the
And that's
idea
why
of
people don't like my songs.
uh, of going for the long term, this whole long termism thing versus the capital gain, I gain, you don't, environment probably won't, we don't care. It's all about me, me, me. The culture of greed, capitalism without morals, bad capitalism, versus circular capitalism, green capitalism, the embodied energy, embodied intrinsic value capitalism of the long term, the intrinsic and equal rights of the remnants of nature versus our right to greed and plunder. And so the conflict points between our prowess and our capacity to look well ahead and go, let's do moderation. That's our undoing.
And it's not a sure thing. I think it's like we quite possibly can, essentially evolve culturally to handle global decision making. Like that's really the evolutionary challenge. It's not about carbon. It's about if it wasn't carbon, it'd be something else. It'd be our ability to collectively identify and decide and sort of like overcome the prisoner's dilemma or whatever that game theory thing is that I don't quite understand, but I know it's to do with this.
Stockholm syndrome.
Is like we could so that's the evolutionary challenge. It's a cultural evolutionary challenge, and we might not. I think we will. I was listening to this great author, but you know what? We've only got about 5 minutes left before the free Zoom thing cuts out, and I refuse to pay for Zoom. We've got 3 minutes and 32 seconds. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Dad. Take us away. We've got a new set. We've got a new vibe. I didn't really like the newsroom.
We've got. I love the set. I'm a big fan of having the globe somewhere near your head at all times. Sometimes sticking your head right in it.
This is actually the set from an existing absurdist news
suddenly
show.
I turned into a cat with a new ball of wool. I can't help it. At the other end of life. So our final topic and the wrap up, and clearly the context for why we do this is Sam and I enjoy each other's chitter chatter. We've always liked each other's brains and how they work and interact. I realised by the time, Sam, you were 12, I realised that you were quite a bit smarter than me and that I'd been brought up to believe I was pretty damn smart. So I was quite happy to have you as a son, I'll tell you what. Our last topic for today on the general theme that we're starting to develop, the wonders of the body, is very briefly just the concept of the eye. Now, the human eye can do things with its brain to make telescopes to be able to see further than an eagle. The human eye can do so much. But then you see one of your mates, Attenborough, you see one of his bits of movie about the little crustaceans that say the little crayfish or whatever like that. And they've got two different eyes that can move in different ways through about 180 degrees each. And clearly they're processing all that information. They can see bits of the spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum, that includes the little slice of light that our eyes see. These little crustaceans, their eyes can see much broader spectrum than that. We haven't got a clue what that must be like. Independent eye movement, deep, and they're really primitive. Well, they're not. But then you wind the whole evolutionary story back and you go, single cell organisms started out, the ones that developed eyes were the ones that started out going, oh, I've got a light sensitive spot that'll tell me how deep I am in the water and I'll better survive. So my light sensitive spot here, and that's how our eyes started. And ultimately, as an offshoot of our brain, rather than any other independent development like a liver or whatever the hell like that, the wonders of the human body.
Well, so I'll put it to you, wonders of the eye, absolutely. And I guess it makes sense that you would have created like a photon capturing sensory organ, and then that would get better and better at assembling those photons in a legible way. But also the wonders of the human mind, because it takes these two inputs and turns them into a cogent like version of reality, because it's not what reality looks like, it's what we're seeing. It's like a fraction of the spectrum, and physically it's probably a good representation of the way the atoms are assembled. But it's, you know, it's we're just seeing a bit a useful enough version of reality for us. But that, like, you know, the left eye and the right eye are seeing different things. Like we see, if I'm looking at my hand, my left eye sees more. The left might, oh no, my dad! Oh no, dad! Well, I guess I'll say it to you guys because Dad already probably fucking knows what I'm talking about. Oh well. Hey Siri, call Dad. Hang on, I got you on speakerphone for the outro. What I was going to say is, you know, all that stereoscopic stuff, which is pretty impressive. But then on top of that is there's this study that's shown basically these people wore these glasses that flipped the vision, like flipped the ocular blah 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 blah. So they were still looking at a cogent world that was consistent with itself, and within like a day, they were able to function completely normally, even though everything was upside down. And to them, it just looked normal. Because the brain was just like, do you know what I mean? And so like the mantis shrimp, it's impressive that it's able to look around like that. And I wonder if we could do that enough, eventually we'd still be, you know, well, I don't think our brains are designed to do that. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, it is still just assembling to, and creating a 3D map of two distinct ocular fields. You know what I mean? It's cool. Anyway, any final words for us, Dad? We're breaking the 40-minute limit here, but I love ocular, like, it's like my job. It's the two eyes.
It's been fun, and I'll try and be able to just hook straight in. I said 10:30 in the thing to say that I'd be sit down and try and set up by 10:30 so that when you were ready, I'd just be able to go click, 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 and away we'd go. But the connection between my phone and the lead, I've got to clean out the little plug. It's got fluff in it or something.
It'll be the lead. The lead's probably like the actual. Usually it's a join where the plug goes into the thing. Hang on, let's end the stream. Thanks everyone for watching. We won't do the post stream wrap up. Always so much fun, and I know a few people actually do watch that, which is kind of cool. So yeah, thanks very much, Dad. Love. Well, I'm going to keep talking to you, so I'm saying goodbye to everyone else. See you later, Facebook.
Bye, everyone.